This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Aiden Keegan, the CEO of Esquires Coffee. Thank you very much for joining us for the first time, Aiden. How are you doing?
Not too bad, Mark, and thank you very much for having me on board. It's my pleasure.
No, it's really good to be talking to you. Of course, it's the first time on Stockbox. Very different industry to what we often talk about. Of course, this is coffee. But I wonder if you can perhaps just start us off by giving perhaps the elevator pitch of the company and what you're all about.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, basically, we are a coffee franchise business. Esquires Coffee is the headline PLC company, but the bones of the business is Esquires Coffee, and the vast majority of that exists in the UK and Ireland. We're wholly franchised. I think, our sort of motto is that we would allow individuals flex their entrepreneurial ambition or muscle by taking single store units or multi-store deals across the UK or Ireland. We work out the business in terms of from the ground up. We control cost of goods through agreements with suppliers and so on to ensure that the business model stacks up for the individual. And that's the basics of it. We've also sort of attached a bit of a hybrid model to that, where we've got people with skin in the game that we refer to as regional developers. There are partners, particularly across the UK. They've bought in for a fee, and we do a revenue share with them. The fact that they have skin in the game means that over and above what an area manager might give you, they're driven to develop their own business, by default our business across the UK. In that aspect. So that's probably the elevator, the 5-second pitch, I guess.
Yeah, okay, well that's good. So sort of two elements here. So if you just look at the individuals first of all, so say for example, I wanted to start a coffee shop, I could come to you and say, I'd like to do this, I want one, or perhaps I want two. Mm-hmm. We'd then go through a negotiation agreement, set up key milestones, etc. But you'd provide everything that I needed to set that up, the branding and the supply chain and all that, and effectively I'm going to be managing that 1, 2, 3 coffee shops.
Absolutely, exactly as you landed out there. You come to us, we do some vetting, both financial and ability wise. Assuming you pass that, we then move on to site selection, of which we have criteria for that. We find you a site that's suitable for you geographically and that we feel is suitable for the business model. And from there, then we provide a turnkey service, which will get you to a store opening. We provide training up to 10 days in advance and about a week beyond opening as well, where we hold your hand throughout that process and remain available to you beyond that. Constant at the end of the phone, constant contact. We have our operations people who attend store beyond that to give you a helping hand and so on and so forth.
Okay, good. And the brand, the front-facing brand, it's Esquires, is it, in the UK and Ireland?
That's it. Yeah, okay. Esquires Coffee, the organic coffee company. Yeah.
Organic coffee company. Okay, great. So, I mean, the other angle you talked about was the sort of regional managers. So these would be more people who are a bit more entrepreneurial, maybe, or got a bit more sort of about them, capital behind them, perhaps, who want to actually sort of take ownership of like a region of the UK, like, for example, I don't know, North Yorkshire, for example, where I'm originally from.
Exactly that. I mean, it's a miniature version of a sort of a national franchise, if you will. You've got global franchises who grant master franchises for the UK, for Ireland, for France, for Spain, all of these kind of things. We've taken that model and sort of broken it back down. And as I said at the beginning, sort of those people then have skin in the game, are more than just an employee. They're self-employed, but as you say, on a sort of an elevated level. And effectively, because they're at the coalface as well, we see them as partners in the business, and we liaise with them in best practice and how we move forward. We learn from each other's mistakes. and sort of try and move the business forward as a group together in that fashion.
Okay. And this business model then, in terms of sort of other players in the space and the sort of proof of concept, so to speak, could you make any analogies to sort of well-known high street brands that people might be familiar with?
Yeah, well, I suppose, the headline grabbers are the likes of Starbucks and Costa, but in the coffee side of things, and then on the other side of things, you've got the likes of Gales and Pret, who would be sort of, in my mind, more food focused. We sort of sit in the middle of those. We have a coffee that we can be very proud of, and that we've put an awful lot of time and effort into the recipe and the IP behind that, as well as the training on site and in store, which yields, to my mind, an excellent product. But I think our USP is the fact that we also have fresh made on the day food as well. So that's that USP. It's not pre-packed sandwiches and so on and so forth. It's made on site on the day, either to order or earlier in the day. And that brings that freshness. It also helps with our cost of goods because it reduces waste and so on from a business model perspective. Sure. But from a consumer perspective, you're getting a fresher product. And we believe it's what's creating that sort of, the repeat business or the loyalty, as it were.
Yeah, the loyalty. Okay. So how long has the business, just give us a bit of perhaps a history about the evolution of the business here with Esquires, Cooks, etc. How long you've been sort of operating for, and of course your venture into the stock market.
Yeah. So before it was Cooks, Esquires in the UK started in around 2001, and in Ireland in about 2002, as it were, as master franchises for those two jurisdictions, as it were, under license from what was then an Esquires Coffee Canada. It has since sort of morphed, and Cooks, what it was called Cooks Global Foods in New Zealand, went around sort of hoovering up the master franchises for these areas. They were a PLC in New Zealand. They went around hoovering them up, and we all became sort of subsidiaries of that business. So that is the business that has then floated as a dual listing on Aquis in the UK, and that's certainly the short version of that journey.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to get too confusing matters here, but I mean, so in terms of the management, who's involved? Where do people sit? Where's this kind of head operations coming from?
Oh, okay. Well. Ultimately, at this point, as of April, I'm CEO of Cooks. I sit across the UK and Ireland. We have added over the summer UK-based NEDs to our board, and we're looking to move the entire board to the UK in the coming 12 months or so. We will always have shareholders in New Zealand that we need to look after, so that just has to be managed properly. But is our intention to move up to the UK.
So UK focused, UK operational
absolutely,
business.
And certainly in terms of the operational management team, it in its entirety lives in the UK and Ireland for both of those businesses. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the New Zealand arm, was that a private, or was that on the public markets over in New Zealand?
It was. Yeah. It was.
Okay.
Yeah. All the time.
Okay. Yeah. So you've got your shareholders still there to
exactly.
To look after as well. Okay. In terms of the business model, and how does it work? Because obviously you want to make money. So to give us a bit of an idea about how revenue shares go, or fees, that kind of thing, and what the business case is really, the investment case.
Sure. So franchisees pay a royalty of 6% of net turnover to us. We share that on a 50-50 basis with our regional developers across the UK. In Ireland, it's slightly different. And the growth that we've seen over the last number of years, which has brought us to this critical mass point, has been driven by those regional developers. And essentially what happens now from a Cook's perspective is that every store that we add to the system adds about £20,000 to the top line. We foresee that we need to add a little bit of cost in terms of HR over the next year or so, but not a great deal. And that all of that should drop to the bottom line, or practically all of it, over the next 2 to 3 years. And to give you some sort of context around that as well, what we're looking to add is around 20 to 20 plus stores per annum to that system. So, in the first full year of trading, they should contribute about 20,000.
Right.
That's the model as it stands in the UK. In Ireland, because the region is smaller, as it were. I mean, it's smaller than Manchester in itself, so we retain complete ownership of that, and there is a larger drop down. So each of those new stores yields about €60,000 to our top line.
Okay.
Clearly, because we maintain control of that region in the whole, there is a little bit of cost that goes with that, but we foresee that 50,000 of that would drop from top to bottom line.
Right. Okay. So that is that kind of quite a good kind of baseline there. So one store effectively adds 20,000 in the UK, about 16,000 in Ireland. There.
60.
The target to 60. Sorry, 60. Okay, 60. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, yeah, that's obviously that's presumably an average. Each store is going to sort of perform differently, but that's a good sort of baseline to kind of for investors to think on.
Absolutely. And if anything, based on the run rates of our more recent stores, it may turn out to be quite conservative, but it's a good number. It's what we're basing our projections and our budgets on. So look, if we improve upon that, all the better.
Okay. How much sort of management do you get involved with the individual store then to sort of make sure? I mean, do you set them targets? Have they got? Are you sort of not whipping them, but are you sort of keeping on top of them, or are they very much left to manage themselves?
Yeah. Well, the great thing about franchising is, and I with a previous hat on, I would be sitting in sort of prospect meetings saying, nobody is going to do for you what you'll do for yourself. So the fact that they have that entrepreneurial ambition means that they will work that bit harder for themselves. That's not to say that some people aren't suited to the business, but the vast majority who make it through the hoops that we make them jump through are self-starters and want to work hard for themselves. So that tends to drive it. But that said, they do come in from spurious industries and so on and so forth, and we are there to pick up the pieces should they stumble here and there. We do also have them set up with an accountancy package which will spot the problems before they will, in terms of KPIs like cost of goods, cost of labor, and so on and so forth. So we can spot those trends within a couple of months, whereas if you're just coming in from a desk job or whatever, and you're not used to looking at all those figures, it could be a year before your accounts are returned and sort of you can see those developments. So we would look to spot those a lot earlier and sort of give you that helping hand to address it. Generally speaking, Mark, the one that people struggle with at the beginning, which is understandable, is that labor cost, because I'd have a rule of thumb what it would take 6 or 7 people to do at the beginning of a store opening, 3 or 4 will do in 5 weeks' time. So you do have a little bit of cost up front, but you just need to manage your roster as you go, type of thing. So that's what we're there to help with, and to notice those signs that maybe you haven't cut back or whatever.
Yeah, okay. But that's on the entrepreneur, the individual there. They're sort of fronting that in the first instance.
Absolutely.
With your support. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all the capital is franchisee-led.
Perfect. Okay. Good. Right. Well, let's try and get a bit of a snapshot. I don't know how much you can say at the moment, but if we try and get a snapshot now of where the company is, I don't know how much you can talk, publicly about finances or what have you. But if you can give a snapshot now, then we can perhaps, look at what you want to achieve before year end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose what can we say? Yeah. We are opening. We're a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of our openings. We have 8 stores as of last week. 8 stores open in the year to date, and we have contracted volumes that would see us at this stage overshoot the 20 by the end of the year, by the end of the sort of the fiscal year. So, put it this way: if you were to ask me, am I comfortable with where we sit and our budgets and so on? Absolutely.
Well, I've just done, obviously, a quick calculation. It's quite easy there. You're talking, so keep it at 20 for now, but 20 times 20, so equating about 400,000 in revenue by year end. Would that be sort of the target internally?
Yes. So what I would say is stores open from one end of the year to the next. So when we're talking about 20, that's their contribution in their first full year of being open. Okay. So effectively it adds 400 to the next year, if you know what I mean. But it will add part of that. It probably, if you take a rule of thumb and you say we're opening, one every 2 or 3 weeks, it'll probably add about half of that in the first year, and then the full amount beyond that. type of thing.
Okay, yeah.
Roughly.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the ratio.
Okay, good. And in terms of just sort of looking further, where are the efforts of the team? Is it all focused on getting the rest of these 20 up and running by year end? Are you looking a bit further in? Have you got sort of different targets for 2025?
Yeah, so the great thing about the way we have this model is that it becomes the regional developer's responsibility to hit those growth targets for us. We've got contracted growth targets for them, which we help them hit. And then we in the background will work on the business model and improving the business model and supporting them where they need it in terms of marketing needs and how the world changes and all of that kind of thing. But cost of goods is a big focus at the moment. But equally, I think where we'd have to hold our hands up and say we're a little bit behind is that digital space. We're not at the cutting edge of where some of our rivals or competitors are. We have invested in terms of the research and the background work in terms of things like the apps for loyalty, for ordering ahead, all of those kind of things. A lot of that work is done and should come to fruition in the next couple of months. And then we have to sort of retrofit that into the system, which attracts a cost.
Okay. So that would be a key sort of milestone to be focusing on, for the next sort of 6 and going into 2025.
Absolutely.
That sort of digital angle, as well as, of course, getting those 20 online. In terms of reporting to the market, in terms of how you're performing, what's your intention to sort of report to the market? Would you look to do sort of quarterly reports or regular sort of news updates on store openings? What's the thinking here?
Yeah, more of the latter. I mean, we will do, obviously, we've got our 6 months is up at the end of September, so we've got a report on that. And then, so we'll do that. We'll do every 6 months, the end of year and the 6 months.
Okay.
And then, yes, we'll bring to market probably monthly or 6 weekly updates in terms of store openings and revenue and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, it sounds like quite a simple model to get your head around as an investor here. So thank you for explaining that. I look forward to just really following that and sort of ticking off, as you go through the rest of the year there. But I mean, for now, that's great. Great introduction. Thank you very much, Aiden Keegan, the CEO of Cook's Coffee.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate your time and your patience. Appreciate that.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.